How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? My name is RUFFLEDLIVE, and welcome back to a brand new video. Today, guys, I want to take a look at what we possibly could be getting ourselves if we get more Paradox Pokemon in the future. Now, what am I talking about? Well, basically, we already have confirmations that we're going to be getting these Pokemon that are paradoxes of sorts, like Pokemon from the future and Pokemon from the past. We already know a bunch of these, or pretty much the list that's going to be in the base game as of right now with the known leaks, but we do also know that there will be definitely more of these in the DLC for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and the DLC has also pretty much been confirmed. So I thought today we'd take a look at more of these possible Pokemon that could show up, because we did a previous video on this, which I would recommend to check out for some more of those. But yeah, let's get into this one right away. Starting things off is this design by Luis Brain. Luis basically put together an idea for what a Neo Sunflora, a futuristic Sunflora, could look like, and I personally love this. Basically, it's a solar panel Sunflora, more or less. It's electric grass, which makes sense, because it being based on a literal solar panel, it means it will be generating electricity, and of course, this, just perfectly works. This is such a cool concept, and it just perfectly works together. I don't really know what else to say about this one. I just think it's one of the coolest designs. Basically, it's literally taking Sunflora, because maybe in the future, there's less likeliness of these Pokemon existing than the same way they used to, and so they have to kind of artificially create them to actually get energy, rather than using, like, other industries that might be detrimental to the Earth. So I personally am a big fan of this design. Now, this Proto Porygon design is basically a past version of what Porygon could have looked like, and this was made by Luis Brain again. Luis put together a fantastic concept here, which I'm a big fan of. Now, we've already speculated in the past that we could have been seeing, like, possibly an old version, like a Hisuian version of, specifically Porygon. It was often speculated, will this Pokemon show up? Will it be available? Yes or no? Now, I'm gonna be honest, I think this is a really cool idea for what an early version of Porygon could have looked like, and then this kind of early version, or like, basically extinct version of Porygon is what future scientists use to actually create the Porygon that we know of, which I think is a really cool concept. Personally, big fan of it, and the normal rock typing fits perfectly well, of course, with it being from, like, the Stone Ages, basically fitting well with the rock typing. Next, we have a design by Indigo Region, who put together a Proto Crocodile. Now, just a Proto Crocodile, in my personal opinion, is a cool idea in general. The coolest part about this design is that it literally has an eaten fish in its mouth. Now, what fish that is, I don't know. It could be a basculin or something, I don't know. But nonetheless, the idea of there being a proto version of it like this, I think is really cool. He does include the typing, which would be water, ground, and it's the ravenous Pokemon. Although Proto Crocodile used to live alongside beaches and rivers and needed light coloration to blend in with the sand and water, they developed black marks around their eyes, which reduced glare due to the immense sunlight that their eyes were exposed to. These Pokemon are also known to have feuded with the Relicanth, I guess that's a Relicanth down there, constantly trying to break its hard scales. Now, this next one is Proto Garchomp. Now, I'm gonna be honest, this is one of the few that I think is the most highly possible one to actually happen. Now, why am I saying this? Well, basically, this design is by Elasteva, and he actually has all three of the different forms. So you got ProtoGibble, Proto-Gabite, and Proto Garchomp. And ProtoGibble, as well as the middle stage Gabite, those two, and somewhat the last stage here with Garchomp as well, these are actually based on, in terms of design, they're actually based on the original design of Gibble, what it was meant to look like originally, and this is based on its beta design from Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. This is literally what it was originally meant to look like. It was supposed to be orange colored, but they eventually ended up changing it, and as I've spoken about in previous videos, and as I will say once again today, it is very common for the Pokemon Company, recent times, to actually go back and take old designs and repurpose them. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, if you guys look at Surffetch from Pokemon Sword and Shield, Surffetch was actually a design that they made back in the Gold and Silver era during 1996, 1997, and so on and so forth. And what's interesting about that specifically is the fact that they literally, reused that design. They actually came back in recent times and reused it. So the idea of there being a Proto-Gibble, a Proto-Garchomp, and Gabite is highly possible, in my personal humble opinion. I think it's highly possible. I think it's highly likely to happen. Question, though, is, when will we see it? Will we see it at all? Well, we don't really know. We're just waiting to see if they end up reusing this concept and bringing it back in one way or shape. Next up, we have my personal favorite Proto design, and that is of Proto Primeape and ProtoManki. Now, ProtoManki and Primeape have been designed by Elasteva again, and this time around, they are given a more, again, caveman-esque aesthetic. Now, ProtoManki is just a more orangish version of Mankey with a kind of a blackish colored bone, in its tail, but that's not all. You have its evolution, Primeape, that literally has that caveman, very like, I guess even a simple word to put it, very much a kind of caveman mentality, or almost like rabbit looking design, very much out there. It kind of looks a little bit similar to like the savageness that you see in the design of Sada, the professor from Pokemon Scarlet, right? You actually see that same thing in her design, where she looks a little bit more primal, I think is the right word I'm looking for, like kind of primal and stuff like that. And that's the same thing you see in this design right here. It's a rock fighting type, but the thing though about this one is we actually do know that there will be a brand new evolution for Primeape. So I wanted to include this one mostly for that reason, because we do know that Primeape is getting a brand new evolution that's gonna kind of look like it's got a massive beard on its face, but that is what it is. We're gonna have to wait and see how that design turns out. But nonetheless, we do know Primeape is getting some love finally with this brand new Pokemon evolution. It's gonna be a brand new Evo, by the way, a cross-gen Evo. So we'll see how it turns out when we get that reveal. The next design is also by Elisteva, and this is of Klepha and Clefairy with their Neo future forms. Now these guys are pretty awesome. So he basically describes them it's kind of an interesting way, right? Basically, Koraidon's power will unleash the Pokemon's ancient original power, while Miraidon's will make the Pokemon's power go beyond time. Now, this, I think, is a really cool idea, that basically we have this kind of, I guess, if you want to put it in a sense, like futuristic version of Klepha and Clefairy, like a version that's kind of evolved to be very different. And we also have the Clefable version here as well, that gives them this kind of spacey feeling, because remember, these are literal Pokemon from space. They have been described as so, and we know that they are pretty much, I think, from the moon. So they are very much from space, which means that it would be perfect for them to have a futuristic version, you know, a future version of themselves that straight up that emulates that kind of, you know, spaceship design you can see in Clefable. And if you look at Clefairy, you actually have almost like the rings of like Saturn or something, kind of like, you know, going around it, which I think is a really cool idea as well. Overall, I think it's a great design. Next up is the design that I don't think we're going to be seeing anytime soon, but a concept that I think nonetheless is interesting to point out. And we're talking about another design by Elisteva, and this is of Proto Pikachu and Proto Raichu. Now, what am I talking about these guys? Well, Proto Pikachu and Proto Raichu are pretty much based on the idea of there being a Gorochu evolution for these lads. Now, there actually was kind of a weird original version of Cyndaquil that looked more like a fire-type Pikachu, which was kind of a strange thingy-majingy, but it turned out that it was also very similar to the third evolution, or I guess, yeah, at the time, I guess, third evolution of Pikachu, which would have been Gorochu, which was a big old, you know, big old chunky Raichu-looking thing. So what about us possibly having then a Proto Pikachu and Proto Raichu that look like these old versions and also have the possible fire typing? Like, what do you guys think about that concept? Because that's what we see right here. Instead of there being like, you know, I guess just them actually evolving into Gorochu, rather, Pikachu would actually have a version of itself that existed in the past, which was a fire type that looked like these two right here. Now, what do you guys think about that? Let me know. Next up, we have one of the best designs made by Elisteva, and that's of Neo Onyx and Neo Steelix. Now, these guys just look so freaking incredible. It's basically like taking these two and just mashing them together with all this high-tech gear. Now, their design pretty much emulates this feeling of like, okay, these are futuristic Pokemon. They've got the plasma rays all around them. They've got like a design that matches more of that future aesthetic. I mean, definitely in the future, these Pokemon will have a harder time existing in their natural, normal way. So they'll probably evolve to be different and look different, and that makes total sense. Again, given the fact that in the future, you know, the world might look different. Everything might be literally out of steel and whatnot, and the world might be very much lacking those natural places, and these Pokemon, you know, may end up looking like this because of that. But personally, this is one of my, you know, just favorite designs. And speaking of Surffetched, which we did earlier, what if Surffetched actually got a version which was a primal version of itself, like this design right here by Mazon Fakemon. Now, Mazon put together a Proto Surffetch design that literally makes it look like a caveman. Now, of course, it doesn't have to mean that every design is going to look like a caveman. It's more likely, actually, based on what's been told to us by Red Laku, that a lot of these designs will look less like cavemen and more like mythological or urban legends, right? So, like, basically myths or legends. Think Bigfoot, the Sasquatch, stuff like that, the Loch Ness Monster, the Mothman. Things along those lines. Think of those kind of things when you're thinking about what these things might actually end up looking like. And I'm personally a big fan, though, of a caveman-looking Surfetch. It would just be funny looking at this guy just running around trying to bonk everybody with this, like, big old club. Just think it would be a cool idea. Then we have a design by Nula Draws. Now, Nula made a Neo Octillery. Now, this thing is an electric psychic type, and you can kind of see it in its design, right? It's basically a design where, like, this thing, its brain has gotten bigger, okay? This is not a dumb Pokemon. This is not a goofy Pokemon. Octillery is now a smart boy. It's got a big old brain, and now it's able to use psychic powers and as well as electrical powers. And I'm a big fan of this ID. I think the concept more than anything looks just amazing. And then there's another design by Nula Draws, and this one I love because it's basically taking Cramorant and making it look like the Dodo Bird. Now, the Dodo, it's a bird that kind of died out a long time ago now. I think actually humans to some extent did kind of hunt him to death, but that's besides the point. These things don't exist anymore. Now, imagine if original Cramorants, like the ancestors of Cramorant, were basically these Proto Cramorants that essentially, in simple terms, look like Dodo Birds, but over time, people hunted them to extinction, and they didn't exist anymore, and only an offshoot of them actually existed in the normal Cramorants we see today. I personally think it would be a cool idea. And the final design is also by Louise Brain again, and this one is of a proto form of Lantern, and this thingy is a dark electric type and looks just, again, a little bit more goofy than regular Lantern. Regular Lantern is kind of a cute little Pokemon. It doesn't look too crazy or anything. It looks actually pretty normal, but this was, again, a more savage, a more primal version of this Pokemon before it became very sophisticated. So, yes, what do you guys think about the design? Let me know in the comment section down below. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it for today's video, guys. If you did enjoy it, drop a like down below. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next one. Have a great day, and bye-bye, ladies and gents.